Hello everyone. We're being delayed for the past several weeks. IRL things have gotten in the way, and so our battle reports have been stalled. We even ran out of our backlog, so this is completely fresh. So sorry for the delay, just real life got in the way. That's simply it. Alright everyone. In the future we'll be having some new content apart from battle reports coming out once we get it down, hash it out, and make it of presentable quality. Or at least what we call presentable. Sometime in the future.
Hey guys, welcome to Warhammer Stuff. Today's battle report is the Raven Guard against the Tyranids High Fleet Hydra. So let's go ahead and take a look at the armies.
Alright, so I am bringing 2,000 points of Tyranids. I've had the book for a few weeks, and I read it in like 20 minutes, and here's what I'm going with. I'm using High Fleet Hydra because I like their small movement buff, and the idea going forward was, I'm new to this army, less diversity of models is going to be very easy to learn, so I bring one battalion. So let's start off with the Hive Tyrant, which has adrenaline glands, endless regeneration, aerocyte gland, and yeah, two monstrous scything talents, prehensile pincer talent. Basically, he's going to be at the center of the army. He's just going to push forward, and he's just melee. I just want melee, just get in there. I want a simple army since I'm learning it. I forgot to give him the psychic powers, so it's not shown on here, but he has the psychic powers Catalyst and Onslaught, so he will be buffing. And then we have Tyranid Prime. Why? Because for a battalion I need 2 HQs. And so he's there just because I have him. Maybe hold objectives, gave him a strong gun. I have no real interest in pushing him forward to die. Alright, and then here we have a squad of 7 Tyranid warriors with Death Spitters and Lash Whips. So they'll be pretty good, pretty strong, I guess. I haven't got the whole Synapse thing fully planned out in my head, but we'll see how that works out. Then, of course, tradition. A large squad of Hormagons with adrenaline glands and toxic sacs. And then a single unit of Termagants, because I need 3 for a battalion. Now on to elites. We have a unit of Tyrant Guard with Rending Claws and Scything Talons. Just run forward, hit stuff. And then we have a Lictor. Super cheap, like less than 40 points. It's hard not to justify taking them. We'll just go everywhere and just hit from the back, kill. And then we have the Death Leaper. I can only bring one of these, which is basically a super Lictor with more wounds and attacks and such. Alright, and then we have the heavies. And so Carnifexes are dirt cheap, so I was like, yeah, let's go with them. So the first squad has all Bone Mace, Monstrous Crushing Claws, and Monstrous Scything Talons. Oh no, wait, no. Only one of them has the Crushing Claws. No, wait, 2 of them have Crushing Claws, and one of them has the Scything Talons. So these 2 are for anti-tank, and this is for just the regular stuff. And then these Carnifexes in the back all have the exact same stuff. Monstrous Scything Talons, Bone Mace. Everyone has Adrenaline Glands, because it's +1 to move, so hard not to take it. Then I have a Tyrannofex, which basically is a massive shooty guy, and so give him adrenaline glands and basic stuff. It's really hard to, like, so the issue with the Tyranid Codex is it is massive. There are so many different types of units and so many upgrades that it is quite a bit difficult to learn, so I wanted to get my foot in with something simple and basic. So very few different types of units, and I would just move in with the basic tactics of run forward and kill everything. I mean, there's a little bit more finesse in my head, but that's the basic idea. So that is 2,000 points of Tyranids.
Alright you guys, so for today's 2,000 points, I'm playing Raven Guard. I'm kind of excited. I've been wanting to play them for a while, so we'll see kind of how this goes. Just by reading the book, there's some straight up themes that kind of stick out to you. You'll notice all the lightning claws in the background and up front. That is one of those themes, so I thought I would give it a go. So starting with my Warlord, he's the guy in the middle. He's just a regular captain. He has 2 Warlord traits and the Ebon Claws, which is a relic lightning claw set. It gives him 2 additional attacks, and he can reroll wounds like usual. It's a -3 and D3 damage each, so kind of mean. He has 2 Warlord traits, so he has Swift and Deadly, which any Raven Guard core or character within 6 inches can charge in a turn that it advanced. And then he has the Imperium sword, so basically he gets +1 strength and attack on his charges and sweep-ins and whatever. To his left is a Kayvon Shrike, who has his usual stuff. He's not the warlord, so he doesn't have his thing, but he is a chapter master, which will be nice. And then he also has wing deliverance, so Raven Guard jump pack units and Phobos units within 6 inches can reroll charge rolls. So I'm hoping that will come in handy. He is also quite mean himself. And so we'll see how that goes. And then next to them is our Primaris Librarian. Raven Guard's an 8th edition book, so there's a little outdated, but I thought I would give because each of the books have their own librarian stuff, so I thought I would try those. So I chose 3: Umbral Form, Spectral Blade, and Shadow Step. So Umbral Form gives him a 4-up invuln. Shadow Step allows him to take a Raven Guard character within 18 inches of him, remove that unit from the battlefield, and set it up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 9 inches from enemy units. And Spectral Blade, basically what it does is his strength characteristic becomes equal to his leadership characteristic, and if he's fighting against someone whose leadership characteristic is lower than his, he has an armor penetration of -4 for his attack. So he has and I also gave him a relic, the Shard of Istvan, which gives him +1 attack. Because their psychic stuff was a little weird, so I figured I'd take this and kind of buff him out a little bit. Okay, so those are the 3 characters, my 3 HQs, because this is a battalion detachment, if I didn't mention that. Moving on to Assault Intercessors. It's just a regular squad of 6, except the Assault Intercessor Sergeant has a Thunderhammer, so quite mean. Just behind them is a squad of 5 Infiltrators, and the Infiltrators do have the Helix Gauntlet. And then behind them, finishing out the troop section, are Incursors, and they have the Haywire Mine. But other than that, these squads are all pretty basic. And so that's it for troops. Moving on to elites, you'll notice one big mean squad of Assault Centurions. They have the Meltaguns, they have the Hurricane Bolters, and they have the Siege Drill Punchies. And so they are ready to kill it. Because Raven Guard have a stratagem, Strike from Shadows, that allows me to take an infantry unit that's as specific as it gets and basically deep strike them wherever I want in the deployment phase. Or in deployment, I use the stratagem, and then in one of my movement phases, they basically show up wherever they want, which will help them get into combat, plus Armor of Contempt makes them really, really mean. Going behind them are 2 squads of 10 Vanguard veterans with jump packs. I don't know why I couldn't find a model with a jump pack, but they all have jump packs. And that's it. They're literally just dual lightning claws. Because of Armor of Contempt, I don't have to necessarily worry about having a shield, so I can just worry about extra attacks and being just a straight up bully with them. And then behind them, interestingly enough, are 3 squads of Eliminators. Now, I don't really use them very often, but in the tactical phase, or tactical doctrine, sorry, not tactical phase, the Raven Guard get +1 to hit and wound characters, and they're already snipers, so I was like, oh, this will be interesting. So the 2 sides have their regular bolt snipers, but the squad in the middle has the Las Fusils, which are, I think, strength 9. So they're just mean. And so we'll see how we go. So that's my 2,000 points. I was trying to play off of the major kind of Raven Guard themes of Lightning Claws, Deep Strike Shenanigans, Phobos, and anti-character. So we'll see how we go.
Alright, so the mission for today is Data Scribe. We are Data Scribe Salvage. So basically it is Control 2, Control 3, Control More, and the objective data intercept is at the end of our movement phase, we have someone perform an action on our home objective, and then at the end of the turn, we gain victory points equivalent to how many of the No Man's Land objectives we control, up to 3. So that's an interesting mission for sure. So for the battlefield, what we're going to do, at least on my end, so the way I envision my army is it's mostly melee, so I need to be able to rush up, but I do have the Tyranids, which basically I'm thinking of as a turret. So I'm putting up a lot of cover which can protect my movement, and so I can just flood objectives and such as... Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I can just flood objectives, rush up, and take things without any real issue. And so a basic line of sight, but I'm a tad rusty, so now looking back, I think I screwed myself.
Yeah, well, so my army is kind of a little bit of a mix. I have my eliminators that are definitely not combat. So I needed some kind of sight lines that were in cover. But then the rest of my army is also combat, so I guess it's really just who gets the charge off. But so I just had a few kind of points that I wanted to kind of slow some troops down coming up to the back, but also giving myself some cover to shoot from, or maybe sneak around through till I can try and finagle a charge myself. So yeah, so just kind of, I don't know, stuff that'll help me maybe a more mobile army than he is. I don't know. We'll see.
Alright, so for our secondaries, we're using the GT Nephilim. We have the small update here, but we don't have like all the special details or the new entirety of the rules. So for me, right now I went with Engage on all fronts, Grind them down, and Assassination. Engage on all fronts is obvious, because that's pretty much what this mission requires of us, and what my army's kind of built for. Grind them down, I have mostly elites, so I think this might work well. And then Assassination was, I could barely think of what a third one would be, so I went with that. It's not really going to score that well. I mean, that's 10 points at max, but like I really got nothing else, so...
Yeah, so again, just like him, being a more aggressive army and more mobile, I chose Engage on all fronts. With both of us playing Engage on all fronts, we'll see who actually gets it. Then I also chose Grind them down for the same reason of being Space Marines. But I chose Retrieve Nephilim data because I think I could probably pull that off with one of my troops, but we'll see. It's probably one of the easier secondaries if I have people to spare to pull off. But yeah, that was the thought. There's not a lot of great choices that I could think of, so...
Alright, so for deployment, that was actually an interesting one. So for me, as far as Tyranids, my idea going forward was to get the big things out of the way first. So I wanted my Tyranids to basically be a turret on the main objective, the home objective, and he has perfect line of sight to everything from where he's at. The Carnifexes just went up because they're the biggest and they need like a lot of leeway to go through, and then everything else sort of just shuffled around them. The Carnifexes are split on the right and left side of the battlefield. I have my Hormagaunts in the back to help me with deep striking. My Lictor, Death Leapers, and stuff like that are in the center on the main objective, just to be able to be flexible. Warriors are also there. A lot of stuff is mostly around the center, and that's basically what I was planning on, just to like consolidate power, make sure I can spread out easily and counteract my opponent's movements.
Yeah, so I established a firing base in the middle, as you do with firing bases. And then I just kind of spread out my combat, and then my other two troops are really just there for objectives and stuff, so I put one on each side. I put my kind of, I say main, but my warlord in the middle with that squad of lightning vanguard vets, just that way they could kind of respond a little bit to what's going on either side. But yeah, so just kind of even spread across, and we'll see how it goes.
Alright, as for going first, if I go first, I'm mostly melee. I have almost no shooting, and my shooting is relatively short range, and his stuff is short range. So honestly, if I go second, that's honestly in my favor. If I go first, I'm just gonna touch objectives. I mean, I probably could get the mission objective, 3 points, because of all my abilities and my high movement and stuff. Like if I run, I'm gonna get an extra 2 inch or an extra inch. I already have 1 inch movement on pretty much everything. And so if I go first, I'm guaranteed 3 points for the mission objective. Absolutely. If I go second, I'm not guaranteed, but I have a target-rich environment, and so I have to take that into consideration. Yeah, if I go first, minimum 3 points guaranteed for the first turn. If I don't go first, I have a target-rich environment, and it does help me probably in the long game to hit first and not be hit first. So that's what I think going forward. How about you?
Yeah, it's kind of in the same thing for me. I think going second would give me more options. Because really, if I go first, what am I going to do? Just run around the corner and try and just snag objectives. So I'll get some early points, but long term, I don't know if it'll do me any favors. So I think, again, going second would probably be better, but we'll see, I guess. So yeah, so I don't know. I think second as well. If I was a shooting army, first, sure, but I'm not. So,
Alrighty then.
Yeah, as good as it gets for me.
Alright, let's begin.
Got a
2.
4.
Raven Guard,
Alright.
turn 1.
Okay, yeah, so, sorry guys. So basically for my movement phase, everything just kind of moved forward. I didn't want to do any runs, just because he probably has a fair bit of movement, so I wanted to move up, but not necessarily in a charge range. I'm not super worried about being shot, but yeah, I just wanted to try and avoid getting any kind of, or moving into a place where he could charge me, essentially. There are also 2 objectives, so the incursors started on retrieve Nephilim data, and then the green squad of eliminators started on the mission secondary. So yeah. On a 5 for Umbral form, it goes off, giving him a 4-up invuln, and then he's going to do Spectral Blade, which also goes off on an 8.
Okay.
And that was it.
Alright.
Alright, you guys, so essentially I shot at everything that I had at this one Carnifex, and he didn't die. So that was it.
There's a little bit more to that.
He would have died, but he had a -1 damage reduction.
That I didn't notice until like towards the end. So in the end, he's down to 2 wounds. My opponent also used a stratagem for 2 CP that allowed his eliminators to shoot and also do actions that turn, so he can do the mission secondary on his home objective.
Yeah. Alright, you guys, so I got 2 points for engaging all fronts. No points for grinding them down because I wasn't able to kill the Carnifex. Retrieve Nephilim data, I was able to get 1 tally against it, because I had to roll a 4 or less because of my 5-man troop squad. And then I had 1 point for data scry salvage because I only have 1 of the middle ground point things.
Movement phase. I'm surprised at how fast the Tyranids can move. Since I'm Hydra, I have +1 to my advance and charge, as well as adrenaline glands really adds that 1 inch. So these guys are just flying across the board. I was very surprised at that. So in the command phase, I used rapid regeneration on the Carnifex that nearly died, gave him back 2 wounds. And then the Hormagaunts, I used bounding advance for 2 CP to make them auto run 6 and still allow them to charge. And so they're 8-inch move native, +6 inches, +1 inch for advancing because of Hydra, and +1 inch for movement because of adrenaline glands. It just flew across the board. And then everything else ran up, and I just built a formation around the Hive Tyrant. That wall there, I can't walk through with anyone except my warriors, so it's actually a barrier, but because he's super fast movement, I'm expecting to be countercharged, so I just want to be fine there. The rest of my models, Tyranid Prime moved out to basically block out any deep striking. The Termagants also did the same thing. Tyrannofex moved up to the wall so he can have line of sight to shoot, so he has some pretty good sight lines. And the Lictor is doing the action, for which I have count them, three objectives. So the Hive Tyrant is going to buff the Carnifex that's furthest from him with Catalyst, giving him a 5 of Feel No Pain. He fails at first, so I use a reroll to, pass it on an 11. And then I give Onslaught, which allows my guys to suffer no movement penalties to the Tyranid warriors. And it goes off on a 9. My opponent tries to stop it because he's within 24 inches of my Hive Tyrant, but he fails to stop it. Shooting phase. Essentially what happened is I had my Tyranid warriors fire at the incursors up top there, and 15 shots, and they managed to do like 6 wounds, but they had a 2-up save because they were 18 inches away, and so they get benefits because of Raven Guard to 2-up save. But one of them successfully died. He rolled 2 1s. My Tyrannofex can shoot at the Assault Intercessors, but I don't want to risk it. This is not worth it right now because I need the Hormagaunts to get in. Alright, so I had the Hormagaunts charge, and they rolled a 10. And with their +1, they made it on an 11. So they surprisingly got in there very well. For the fight phase, my Hormagaunts all piled in. I spent quite a lot to get them in there. And so they had +1 to hit because they outnumbered the enemy. And I found out here and there that they had only strength 3. So it was pretty bad. However, the Toxin Sacks made their 6s to wound do a lot of damage. I just realized after I swung that I can reroll once to wound if I had 20 or more guys. But so essentially the Hormagaunts did nothing to the Librarian. They whiffed all their attacks. 7 of them swung on him, even though they had +1 attack from shoot, I can't remember. I spent a CP or 2 CP on that ability. Yeah, I believe so. I basically gave them an extra attack for 2 CP, and that didn't help at all. So they did nothing against the Librarian. They swung and managed to kill 3 of the Intercessors because of their increased damage on 6s, and he rolled poorly. And then he swung back, and he slaughtered my guys entirely. And then he spent CP to have his Assault Squad swing a second time, and they slaughtered my guys, and the Librarian also slaughtered them. These guys were not as good as I thought they were going to be. I remember them being a lot better. Yeah, and so I basically just got slaughtered there, and I now realize that they're not within Synapse range of anything, so that's going to hurt badly. So, alright, so for points, I do not get engaged in front because the new updated version has a 6-inch requirement, and I'm 5.8 inches into my 3rd quarter, so I do not get it. Grind them down, no one gets this turn, sadly. Assassination, I do not get. But I do get 3 points for Data Scry Salvage because I do control 3 points and I completed the thing. So, so-so. And as far as morale, I spent 2 CP for my Termagants to not have to take it, and that's about it.
Alright guys, so essentially I was able to play a lot more aggressive this turn. He doesn't have any Deep Strike, and everything has kind of moved forward, so now I am coming in, my Deep Strikers have come in, and I am going to see what damage I can do, because if I don't do it now, I probably won't be able to do it. Just my always assumption. Yeah, everything moved forward, and I'll see what I can get into combat with, and I'll see what I can actually kill. Alright, so he's going to start off with Umbral Form, which gives him the 4-up invul. He needs a 5. It goes off, just barely.
I can't stop because you're out of range.
Okay. And then he's also going to do Spectral Blade, which also goes off on a 5.
Okay.
So he got both of them off. Okay, so shooting phase was relatively unproductive. With the Assault Intercessors and the Librarian, they took a couple pistol shots. I think the Librarian actually took a guy out, unlike the Intercessors. Then the Eliminators, so the Las Fusel guys, took a shot at one of the Carnifexes, the top or the bottommost one. And I think they only did like a single wound. No, they did 2 damage, so 1 shot got through. And then the other 2 squads with the bolt snipers actually could see the Tyranid Prime just like straight down that alley, and so they all took shots. Only did 3 damage. I would have
That's
done a little
because
bit
I
more.
spent, yeah, I spent
Yep.
a CP to make it so that any damage done to him would be reduced by 1.
So I think that actually kept him alive, or he would have only had 1 wound left.
He would have only had 1 left.
Yeah, okay. So he would have still been alive no matter what, but he has a half-life. And then the infiltrators are doing objective thing. So Kayvon tried to shoot one of the Carnifexes as well, and he failed horribly. And then my assault Centurions took the turn, and so I broke them down into chunks of 2, so 2 of them shot at each Carnifex, and so 2 Carnifexes are no longer here, and there is 1 Carnifex with a single wound left. And because they're really mean up and close, especially in combat, but we'll see how that goes in a second. And yeah, so that was the shooting phase. Relatively productive, but only because of the assault Centurions. Alright, you guys, so for charge phases, a bit happened. First off, I tried to charge with my assault Centurions into his Tyrant Guard. Literally nothing happened, but that wasn't actually a surprise to me because I wasn't expecting them to get in. It was just kind of a Hail Mary charge. Then my Warlord charged his Tyrant Guard. We'll see if that was a mistake soon. And then the Vanguard vets next to him charged the Tyranid Warriors next to them. And then Kayvon tried to charge the Carnifex. He failed, but his Vanguard vets did not. So we'll see how this charge phase or assault phase goes. There's a lot going on in it, so we'll see how we go. Alright, you guys, so this charge phase went relatively well. My Vanguard vets wiped his Tyranid Warriors out. They had like 50 something attacks with their dual lightning claws and the charge, and so they cleared that squad out and they consolidated into the Tyrant Guards. Probably should have done the Tyrannofex, but it's too late now. Then he interrupted with his 1 wound Carnifex. Actually took out 3 of my Vanguard vets with that. And then from there, my Vanguard vets just swung back and killed it with the 1 wound. And then I swung with my Warlord, and he only got 1 wound through, but it did a full 3 damage because these are D3, the Ebon Claws, and killed off 1 Tyrant Guard. And then he actually killed off down here. He swung with his Hormagaunts, or I guess up there on your screen, and he killed 1 of my Assault Intercessors, and still hasn't been able to dink the Librarian. But then they swung back, and I think they only killed like 3 guys. I don't even know. It's kind of embarrassing. And then his Tyrant Guard swung back on my Captain, or my Warlord, and did a single wound with their swings, because he saved like 5 wounds or something like that. But yeah, so that was the combat phase. Alright, you guys, so for this turn's points, I had 1 primary at the beginning, or two of the objectives, but that's 1 point on the primaries. Data Scry Salvage, I was able to get 2 points from it this time because I ended up sitting on 2 objectives by the end of the turn. Engage in all fronts, I have the 2 points again. Grind them down, it's at the end of the battle round, but I did wipe 4 units, 3 Carnifexes and a Tyranid Warrior squad. So we'll see if I can hold that. I would be hard-pressed to believe. I'd really like to think he can't get past up to 5 to beat me for it, but crazier things have happened, I guess. And then the Nephilim data, I needed a 4 or less on it to get it, and I did. So I have a second mark for that, which at the end I guess is like 8 points or something so far. But yeah, so all in all, a good round of points.
Alright, so for the beginning, the Hive Tyrant used his Synaptic thing with the Tyrant Guard to give him Relentless Onslaught, which allows him to charge even if they fall back. and that was pretty much it. I used 1 CP regeneration on the Carnifex that was up top wounded, gave him back 2 wounds, so he moved downward. Yes. And yeah, and basically I surrounded to try to see if I can do a good counter punch, so we'll see what happens. Alright, for Psychic Phase, Hive Tyrant tried to give the 5-up Feel No Pain to the Tyrant Guard, and my opponent blocked it. And then he cast Smite on the Vanguards. My opponent cannot stop it, and I did 3 mortal wounds to them. Alright, basically I just pincer moved and have everyone charged in, including the Hive Tyrant, into targets right in front. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, so for points, I control 2, control 3, so I got 2 points for the... I got 2 objectives. Then for Battle Scry, or Data Scry, I got 1 point. I do not have Engage on all fronts. I did not get Engage, Grind them down, my opponent did this turn, but I did get Assassination, and was the Warlords that went to 4. So far it's not looking too good, I'm getting surrounded on all sides.
Okay, so my incursors moved up, they were able to sit on the objective, and they're also far enough into that zone, so I had them start the Nephilim data, because they should be fine to the end of the turn at least. I also broke out my eliminators and had them running 2 different objectives, because this is kind of that point of the game where I need to start getting them on stuff, as well as since a lot of his force is now kind of focused in the middle, it should allow me to hopefully contain them and do that. Then my Vanguard vets up top went around and up towards his main home objective, and Shrike moved as far forward as he could, as did the Assault Centurions. My Infiltrator Marines, actually, I used Guerrilla Tactics for 1 command point to basically re-deep strike them, because they are Phobos units. So, and not deep strike, what is the word? Strategic reserves or whatever. So they popped out and they're gonna pop back up later. And yeah, so that is my movement phase. So yep, so far so good. Roll form, which goes off on an 8.
I try to stop it. I do not.
Cool. And then this is Spectral Blade, which goes off on a 10.
I try to stop it. I do not stop it.
Alright. And guys, the Assault Intercessor Sergeants are going to shoot the Carnifex with their pistols. They need 3s and 5s. So far, so good. Wonderful. 1 at -1. Nice. And then the Librarian, same thing, 3s, but this will be 5s. Alright, and that's it. Alright, so basically for the charge phase, it was highly productive. Everything that charged got in. So my Vanguard vets up at the bottom, they went and they charged. They got into his Tyranid Prime and his Tyrannofex. My Centurions, only one of them actually got in technically, but they charged the Tyrant Guard and they made it. And Kaven charged the Hive Tyrant, and we'll see if we can topple that piece of garbage. Because he heals a lot, and that would be unfortunate. And then nothing else really charged, that was it. But
alright, in the combat phase.
Alright, so combat, I started up against the Tyrannofex and his Tyranid Prime. I was able to kill the Tyranid Prime relatively easy, and I did 3 wounds on the Tyrannofex. And then I went down to the Assault Centurions, and I only had one guy who could swing, but with his siege drills, he wiped out the Tyrant Guard squad by himself, which is ridiculous, but he did it, so. And then, see the charge. Kayvon Shrike came in, he swung, he did 3 damage.
To the Hive Tyrant?
Yeah, to the Hive Tyrant. That was all my charges that happened. Then he started swinging back. His Tyrannofex didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
But his Hive Tyrant... No, who swung on the squad? Is it the Carnifex?
Yeah, it was the Carnifex. The Carnifex wiped them out entirely.
Okay, yep.
Really
and
good
then
rolls.
the Hive Tyrant had some really, really good rolls as well, and my saves were not that way.
He
so
failed
Shrike
5
died on the
saves.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shrike was wiped
and then
out.
he also managed to kill off my Librarian because I also rolled some pretty garbage saves.
Well,
with him.
basically, I knew that, so it was split between the Carnifex guaranteeing wiping out the squad, or having a chance of wiping out that one character, maybe do some good. So I decided, you know what, all in on the character. I swung and I brought him down to 1 wound left, and then the Carnifex had his tail weapon, which hit, wounded, and he failed his armor save, and the tail weapon killed the Librarian. So that was very close, that was very lucky.
That was extremely unfortunate.
Yep. Yeah, and that was combat.
Alright, you guys, so for points, I was able to have more primaries at the beginning of my turn. I think I still have more primaries now, but they're different primaries, or different objectives. Anyway, not important. I got 1 point for Data Scry Salvage, just because I moved a bunch of people around, so I only had 1 of the actual No Man's Land objectives. I got 2 points for Engage on All Fronts. I'm currently losing Grind Them Down on the kill tally. We'll see how that goes by the end of the battle round, though. And then I was able to get another Nephilim data point, so now I just need 1 left.
And for me, I managed to get the max assassination points I was able to get. I killed 2 more characters, that brings me up to 6.
Off all my characters.
Yeah. Alright, and that's it for points. Alright, a lot of staring, a lot of thinking, a lot of strategery. It's really not looking good for me, so I'm just doing what I can. The Hive Tyrant gave the Tyrannofex a Relentless Onslaught so he can fall back and charge. So he got out of combat there. The Termagants moved in to do what they can. Death Leaper moved on to 1 objective. 1 Carnifex is pretty much stuck there. And, yeah. We'll see how this goes. Start with the basic psychic phase. So, Hive Tyrant is going to give that guy Feel No Pain 5. We'll spend his reroll to redo that. Makes it. Carnifex is Feel No Pain. Alright, he's gonna cast... yeah. He's gonna smite those suckers.
Alright.
Does not go off.
Wow.
Alright, so for a shooting phase, I just had the Termagants mag dump into the Vanguard veterans, and they successfully did 1 wound. Alright, in the charge phase, the Tyrannofex charged the Vanguards, made it in. The Termagants charged, made it in. The Carnifex charged the Centurions, made it in. The Hive Tyrant charged the Centurions, made it in. And then the Death Leaper charged the Incursors by moving within the correct distance, so he's still touching the terrain, but he's within 0.2 inches of the guys, so he's in charge range. Alright, so for fighting, so my Tyrannofex swung on the Vanguards, did nothing. The Termagants swung, did nothing. Alright, and then once that was done, my Carnifex, swinging on the Assault Centurions, managed to kill 1. And then the Hive Tyrant swung, did a bunch of wounds, but my opponent saved them all. And then up top, my Carnifex wiped out that last 2 guys of that 1 squad. My Death Leaper killed 1 of the incursions, guys. And that was pretty much it for my swings. And then he swung back, swung all his Vanguard veterans against my Tyrannofex, and did 2 wounds. And then the Assault Centurions, 3 of them were able to swing on my Hive Tyrant, and he failed all of his saves, and he lost all his wounds. He lost 12 wounds in 1 go. He had a 4-up invulnerable save, and he couldn't... And he rolled 4 failures. It was so terrible. And, yeah, and that was the combat phase. Alright, I have nothing that requires morale, and so I did not get any primaries. I could not get any secondaries. Engage on all fronts, pretty much hopeless. Grind them down I managed to get this time, and that's about it. Yeah. Alright, So we decided to call it simply because strategically, even if magically the entire Centurions were wiped out, it would not be able to cover enough objectives, essentially. And so I'm gonna have to call it there as I lost too much. Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, lost way too many guys. Couldn't strategically cover everything. I was being run around. So MVP, LVP.
Yeah.
Good
I
question.
think I know MVP. I don't know if I have an LVP actually. All right, let me look through my dead pile. Who's dead? Hmm.
Well, I can easily find it, so I'll start first. So, LVP, I'm gonna have to go and say it was the Hormagons. These guys ultimately failed. I thought it would have been a clean sweep. Instead, they were just like water against rocks, just being smashed
It
against
was
it.
a reverse sweep.
Yeah, I greatly overestimated their abilities. What I should have done is broken them down into smaller squads, and so basically I'd have them on objectives, and then the Carnifex that was stuck holding the objective could go and fight. So that was me greatly overestimating what these guys could do, because I looked at all the buffs, their advance and charge, their extra attack and stuff, and then when push came to shove, they just floundered so hard. MVP, even though he died pathetically again in one combat against the Centurions, he did kill a bunch of veterans, and he wiped out Shrike in a single go.
Yeah.
So, I have to take into account, it's like a lot of my guys just did terrible, but he didn't do as bad. He did something. I mean, I could closely put the Tyranids there for just whipping. Well, yeah, that was my LVP and MVP. What you got?
So my MVPs were the Assault Centurions.
Obviously.
I think they did some real numbers this game. But also, I mean, I haven't really been able to use them in a long time. And so with Armor of Contempt, they're more survivable now. And with Raven Guard, that they're able to basically deep strike one squad. Like, it gives Raven Guard, at least, really nasty Assault Centurions. So they came in, they dropped 2 Carnifexes on the spot. And then when they did get to combat, one guy wiped out the Tyrant Guard squad, and then they wiped out the Hive Tyrant himself. So they were just beating the mess out of stuff. So that was
I will
nice.
point out I completely forgot about the Spore Assist, so you had -1 to shoot all my Carnifexes. I completely forgot about that until afterwards.
Yeah.
So that probably would have at least
Which
spared one
may
Carnifex.
not have had an effect. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, one of them died by just 1 wound, so
That's true.
yeah.
And then LVP was Shrike. He's got great stats. I probably just really badly mismatched him. He did 3 wounds on the Hive Tyrant, maybe. And then the Hive Tyrant just ate him. So it's probably a mismatch on my side. But yeah, so he literally did nothing. So he's the worst for this game. But yeah, so I would say those were it. Honestly, I enjoyed all of my units. I don't know how much I would actually change in this list. Even the eliminators, like, I don't know, they weren't necessarily actually super great. But to be fair, their thing is characters, and they only had 1 round of shooting against your character. They actually didn't do very well that round, so I don't know. The last Fusel guys are interesting though, but all around I think this list did really well. The Vanguard vets were really nasty. They were more properly matched, I think. This last round I should have swung against the Termagants and not the Tyrannifex, but I don't know why I thought they could kill him, because he was strength 8 or toughness 8. But if he was toughness 7, he might have died because of how many 5s I had on that last round of combat, but not important. But yeah, the only issue with this list, I think, is there's no really mobile heavy hitting. My assault intercessors were the only ones with a thunder hammer. So the Centurions are strength 10, but they are 5-inch movement. So essentially, if their deep strike is bad, they're probably going to be useless for the game. Luckily, this time they were close enough that they were able to get in and do stuff, even though a lot of their shooting was blocked because of this terrain piece, which was annoying. But, so they probably would have done more if they could actually have seen through here. Yeah, I think all in all, the army did pretty well for itself. I just might maybe add another Thunderhammer somewhere or something. I don't know.
As for me, it's because I got hit first, and I got hit hard first. So probably I got greedy in trying to get that extra 1 point. If I would have just kept my guys more reserved, I would have probably had more survivor. If I also remember that rule about the Carnifexes, that item I got them, I probably would have had maybe all 3 of them would have survived. I mean, almost dead. But I know that if at least one survived, you wouldn't have been able to push your veterans through here to get to the back zone. They would have been stalled for 1 turn, and I could have counterattacked them instead. So, I do know that was the case. Mistake on my part.
Well, I mean, it was also your first go at Tyranids, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a new book, and it's a thick book at that.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I greatly overestimated Hormagaunts.
Now, granted, like, ever since, what did we get in on 3rd edition?
Yeah.
Like, these are all of the models that I would have wanted to play. Of course, the Tyrannifex wasn't around back then.
Yeah.
But like, all of these things would have been, like, these were the models to play.
Yeah.
I don't know if they aged well, or maybe we just...
Well, tactics have changed a bit. I can see what I would do differently. Hormagaunts would not be the front
Tyrant
line.
was good, though. He was mean.
Tyrant, yeah, he did pretty good.
Yeah.
He would have killed 1 more if he. Well, technically, he could have killed 2 more with the amount of wounds he did.
Yeah.
2.5.
I luckily I had good saves there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I didn't have it on my librarian because he could have taken the Carnifex, but
Yeah.
I was actually my librarian, so I don't think I've actually had a good experience with a Space Marine librarian yet. But this was probably the first time because of those abilities where he's strength 9 minus 4 AP. Like, he's mean. That's a mean librarian.
Yeah. Stuff there.
But yeah, I think all in all, like, especially Tyranids, I think it was the first good go. A good first go, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and I guess GG's then. Well, I hope you enjoyed the battle. Like the video if you liked the video. Comment if you want to comment. Let us know if we missed anything. I know I missed a lot first round with the Tyranids, but let us know if there's anything that probably could have been done better, more specifically, and such and such. And more to come, hopefully soon. All right, bye.